Hello, Literary Art viewers. Today we have with us another versatile literary personality, Sahana Ahmed. Sahana has written a novel, Combat Skirt. It was published in 2018, and she has also edited a poetry collection, an anthology, Amity Peace Points. Besides, Sahana is very vocal about a lot of social issues and women issues. She keeps writing about these things in various columns, which are published in different publications in India and abroad. So let us talk to Sahana and know from her literary journey. But before that, welcome Sahana to the Literary Art podcast.
Thank you so much, Onkar, for having me.
Very interesting to know your journey from the beginning, your influences.
So, Onkar, I grew up in the army. My father was in the infantry
Mhm.
in the famous Saragadi Paltan Sikh regiment. So, we traveled a lot throughout my childhood across India. I was homeschooled for a long time, and finally, I started going to school regularly in grade 4. Uh, Even then, I ended up studying in almost 13 schools. I'm saying almost because in I think one of those I was not even registered as a student. So it's been a very, very adventurous life. How it has shaped my current life is I learned very early in my life that you need to be adaptable, you need to be resilient. On the positive side, it also taught me that you can always get a fresh start. You can always start again.
Mhm.
Um, the army life, it taught me cultural and religious, syncretism. It actually practically showed me what it means when you say there's power in unity.
Mhm.
It's also shaped my work ethics in some way because I was surrounded by people who never said no, who always did the impossible. So, so I think somewhere it was ingrained in me that you have to do everything to the best of your ability. You have to give in your best. You can't say no. So that helped me in my career in hospitality. I trained to be a hotelier. Then
Mhm.
I was a training consultant for a long time. And then I started my own training academy when I was 27. So even
Interesting.
in my I worked in a lot of sectors.
Yeah,
So
so I can relate to you because my father was also part of the army, and we have seen moments from time to time. Not too many because in the initial part we were with him, but later on we stayed at one place and he continued to work in the army. So very much relatable your journey.
for some reason my parents decided that I had to stay with them. So um, when after my 10th boards I wanted to take up humanities. We were in Gangtok at that time, and the school did not have any other stream other than science, so I had to take up PCMB. So
Mhm.
in certain ways your circumstances lead to your life choices. So
Yeah,
even in my writing
circumstances
career,
combined with your destiny, I believe. It's a lethal combination and somehow sometimes very helpful.
yeah, and I wanted to study literature
Mhm.
after school, but my parents wanted me to take up a professional course, and everybody was studying hotel management, so that is what I also had to end up doing. And but I'm happy that now I'm able to contribute to literature, even if I could not study it.
I think you're also India country chair for World Peace Wing G100. Can you share some of your insights on organization's missions and the initiatives that you're involved in?
G100 is a global networking forum for women leaders. This includes Nobel laureates and heads of state, business women, influential people,
Okay.
and not just women, but also he for she champions. So men in power positions leadership positions who contribute to the vision of creating a more equal, progressive, inclusive world for women. And the mission is to achieve gender parity by the end of this decade. Uh, so the framework is that there are 100 wings which represent 100 sectors. Then each wing has 100 country clubs, and those country clubs in turn have 100 members each. So the idea is to have 1 million people working towards this common goal. As for when it comes to my wing, it is led by Nobel Peace Laureate 2015 Vidit Bushamawi,
Okay.
and
Wow.
the initiative that we were working on earlier this year was to connect Afghan women who wanted to finish their higher studies with universities that could offer scholarship. So, so one university was kind enough to, offer 15 undergraduate scholarships, completely tuition free, and we
Interesting.
were in touch. We were in touch with organizations and individuals who could connect us to Afghan women who wanted to avail of this opportunity, and we're still working on this. And last year, of course, this book, it was part of PG100 vision of, creating dialogue around peace and what it means to people.
Sort of instances or circumstances inspired you to work for women rights in India and globally? I usually see a lot of articles that you write. They're centered around, women right and female right.
So it was never my idea to become an activist. It
I
just happened
understand.
organically. And then there is RBTC, Rising Beyond the Ceiling. They are headquartered in New York, and they work towards highlighting the achievements of Indian Muslim women. So I am also, curating a book for them where we will put together all the achievers from West Bengal. That's where I come from. So
Okay.
yes, and these opportunities also fell into my lap because of the work that I was doing for the Rural Tourism Council of Wiki.
Mhm.
I think we managed to create a lot of buzz, and that's how people thought that I was, competent enough to be able to take on these other roles as well. So
Mhm.
that's how it came about.
And this book that you're talking about, will it comprise stories from around the world or just one
So
section or maybe one geography?
there are yes, so there are different regions and states. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the example of RBTC North America compendium that just came out. So
Mm-hmm.
I have also contributed to the research of that. So we all work together, the different coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
So the area that I have in my charge is West Bengal. So I focus on stories from West Bengal.
Okay. And what would be the focus in the book? I mean, what sort of what would be the underlying theme, if we can reveal?
Yes. So the idea behind RBTC was, first of all, to break the stereotypes of how an Indian Muslim woman is. See,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if you, not people like us, but most people think that it's a very backward community. There's lack of education. There's lack of women rights. They all don't look the same. They don't. We all don't speak the same language. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that we are united by a common faith that we were born into. But
Mm-hmm.
the basic idea is to share stories of role models so that we
Mm-hmm.
can inspire the next generation of women,
And I
girl
think efforts which are required to uplift these women in different parts of the country probably require different approaches, not the same approach which is applicable possibly
Yes.
in Uttar Pradesh, might not work in Karnataka or in any other state.
Right, that's also true. And it's a very clear cut framework where we have different sectors. So there are women who have done well in uniformed services, there are women who have done well in politics, women who have done well in the media and the arts, women who have done well in the corporate sector. So,
Mm-hmm.
to give role models to the next generation from all sorts of backgrounds.
Tell us about your literary journey as well. You have written a novel, and tell us your experience about writing it and the feedback that you received from your readers as well as from critics.
Onkar, actually, the book Combat Skirts,
Mm-hmm.
it came about because in 2016 I decided to take up writing as a serious vocation. Before that it was just scribbling somewhere and sharing some haiku on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
um, but my daughter, who was 5 at that time, she said something which really pinched me, and she said, "Mama, you don't do anything." I'd taken a break to raise her, and she said, "Mama, you don't do anything, you just stay at home." So I thought that I have to give her a positive example of you know uh, what her mom is actually. And so I
I think that's
decided.
a very good trigger. And even a lot of male members of the families started having the same feeling when they were, inside the homes during the lockdown and the
Yes, I
following
guess.
period.
So the trigger was that, and also the fact that I was really sick at that time, and I
Okay.
felt that if I if I pass away without having written a book, that'll be a big tragedy, because I've always been very, very fond of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was not something that was a secret passion. Everybody knew that I loved writing,
Okay.
and I used to win a lot of contests in first college, and then even in my during my corporate career, I was editing a
Mm-hmm.
magazine for my organization, and so forth. So I decided to start submitting the work that I had in my folders,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily I got really, really, you know, I got through very prestigious journals,
Oh,
and
wow.
I felt it was beginner's luck,
Mm-hmm.
because those magazines have an acceptance rate of 1 to 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 2016 August, I'm talking about, I also participated in a contest, a short story contest. So I wrote about, again, my army life, my army upbringing. It contributed to that, because I wrote about a military special train,
Mm-hmm.
and the publisher, the all the commissioning editors, and whoever were in charge, they all unanimously loved the story, and they
Mm-hmm.
offered me the chance to write a book for them.
Wow.
And I was baffled, because I was so new. I did not have a body of work,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even have an idea. But since they wanted me to write a love story
Mm-hmm.
based in the army,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to do something different. There were lots of books about army wives.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to write about army daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So my book, Combat Skirts, it's based in an army girls' hostel in the Calcutta of the 90s. It has the backdrop of the Kargil War.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
it has been, you asked about the feedback I've received.
I
Uh,
was reading some of the reviews and they were really great on Amazon. So I was really excited to know. And I mean, how's been the response in the critics circle, or maybe people who you knew personally?
Most of the people who have left reviews on Amazon are not people I know, and I don't know whether you noticed, but those are mostly from men. So men, although the book was written for women, young women, men have really, really enjoyed the book, because I think there's a lot of humor that speaks to them, and humor in uniform. So generals and ex-DGPs, and men who have served for a long time, they have
Mhm,
enjoyed the book immensely.
mhm.
And also, one of the feedback has been that it should be made into a film or a web series. But then,
Wow.
of course, there are practical considerations, and the book has reached a lot of producers. Let's see. I hope they find the courage to invest
Mm.
in a story which is, you know, which is focusing on
The
women
lives,
friendship.
right, right.
Yes. So
Absolutely. Sounds really interesting. And talking about your Amity Peace poems, you edited this anthology, and I think it features nearly eight poets or different poets from 8 countries. Am I correct?
yes, yes,
Okay.
47 writers from 8 countries.
Wow, wow. So, what are these poems, if you can briefly tell?
So the idea was, because I was heading the India wing for G100 World Peace, I
Mhm,
felt quite useless because, so much was happening around the world and there's so much violence. And even on Twitter, if you just log in for 5 minutes, you will find so much microaggression, so much Islamophobia. So we were
mhm,
just talking, my husband and I still remember the date. It was September 5th last year,
mhm,
and he told me that I handle negative environments very well. I
mhm,
do not react. And he said, why don't you put together, bring together people who can do the same, who don't really react or respond aggressively.
mhm,
And it just gave me this idea of calling up Hava Call right away. And I said, I have this idea. Do you want to back it?
mhm.
And they said, yes, of course, you can do it, but you will have to edit the book. So
Okay.
that was something that I was not planning. I was hoping that they will compile and curate it, but they asked me to do it, and that's how I started approaching poets from around the world.
Mhm,
But I could have featured a lot many poets from other countries as well, but
mhm,
we were working to a very very strict deadline. We already knew that we had to launch the book at the Women Economic Forum that was
mhm,
going to happen in December.
mhm,
So we worked backwards. We charted out all the dates and okay, this is the last date that we can get a submission, and this is the date that the book has to go to the printer. So that
mhm.
way, and I thank our call for being so cooperative and
Yeah, they are
for
really.
backing this idea. So my brief to all the contributors was that, of course, it's a poetry book, so had to be poems. Um,
Mhm,
I just told them that don't get overwhelmed or intimidated by the word peace, because then
mhm,
people start thinking of a macro scenario. I
mhm,
suggest talk about whatever peace means to you, be as authentic as possible. And many of the poets are first time, published writers. So
mhm,
they were not poets in the traditional sense. They were teachers or parliamentarians or
mhm,
doctors or military veterans. I just
mhm,
told them that I am sure you have a perspective on this and I want to share this. So of course
mhm,
I had to work with them with the poem structure. I had to tell them a little. I had to teach them technical details of how poetry is done. But it was a very, very fulfilling and rewarding experience. And they were so happy to see their name in print for the first time.
And when you get a lot of perspectives from people who are not traditionally poets or poets in the classical sense, I think a book combining those ideas, those poetry collections becomes quite enriched, because you are not simply having ideas from people who are poets in the classical sense, but at the same time from people who day in day out live different environments. So I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a new thing that, poets with such, uh, you know, they had so much fame were
Mhm.
also being featured with complete newcomers.
And you also mentioned World Economic Forum and Women Achievers. So you've been recognized as 33 Women Achievers of India, and also you've got the award, Women of the Decade award at the Women Economic Forum 2022. Tell us a bit more about how these awards came your way and your contributions recognized all through this. I think this is an extraordinary achievement.
Thank you so much. Completely unexpected. All these accolades, you obviously never think of. I never had this ambition of being featured with other women achievers. When I saw the other names on the poster
Mhm.
from Indian Achievers Club, I was taken aback. Some of them were role models when I was growing up, and it just completely blew my mind to be featured alongside them. And when I was given conferred the Woman of the Decade award, I had no idea. I had usually they inform you in advance that this is the recognition that you're going to get. But I
Mhm.
happily went on the stage. I received the award. I came down and then I looked at the plaque and I almost fainted. I'm like, what is this?
You do work, you don't really think about the awards when you are actually working for the society, raising a voice against certain social issues. So if awards come, that's always welcome. And in your case, I think you truly deserve it.
Thank you. So I'm very grateful for being recognized for the hard work of not just from my end, but from my entire team. Everybody who has worked with me has contributed to these recognitions, and it just helped in the work that I want to do going forward. So, very, very grateful.
Couple of things like your message as a person who is working on different social issues, as well as your advice to authors who are aspiring to be poets or maybe storytellers like me.
What advice do I give you? Come on. Um, So whenever somebody asks me to give advice, I'm like, am I even, at that stage of my life where I can start giving, don't go by my gray hair. I'm not that old. With my limited experience, what I can say is, and this is common for both life situations and writing, is that you have to keep going.
Mhm,
Patience and perseverance, these two things, resilience,
mhm,
fall down, get up, start walking again. This is something that I have lived in my life. I um, have gone through very lows in my professional career, in my personal life as well. And, you know, uh, you can always come back. You can always make another comeback. So that is the only thing I have to share.
right. So all the very best, Sahana. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us. Your life is really inspiring, and I'm sure viewers would love to, listen to this podcast and share their insights on this. Thank you so much for being part of this.